Been spending these Sunday evenings for a few weeks refreshing our minds and our hearts on what the Bible has to say about the home. And I'm sure that most of us, if not all of us, want a godly marriage, a good home, mature and spiritual children. We want there to be peace and harmony in the home. We want the home to be a place of spiritual cultivation, not just for the children, but for the adults as well. And if that is not your desire, if that's not what you want for your home, then you have much deeper spiritual problems that need to be addressed. And I preached last week on ancient homes, modern problems. And the idea is there's nothing new under the sun. That whatever problem you could encounter in your home, it's already happened somewhere else. And I believe you can find that in the Bible. And so we're looking at some of the homes in the Bible to identify a dominant trait or a dominant problem that was in that home. Now we can very easily look at successful homes and find a positive trait. I have chosen to use as our examples the bad ones, all right? Not just to be negative, but because I believe that whatever challenge, whatever problem that comes into your home, that problem has already been played out somewhere. And so that's what we're looking at. And so last week we began, and I looked at the home of Adam and Eve, the first marriage in the history of mankind. And we always go back to that when we're preaching on marriage. And that is where God put one man, one woman together for all of life. And the word that I would look into that home, the word that is most dominant for me is the word disobedience. It is a perfect marriage between two people, perfect people living in a perfect paradise until sin invaded that place. And when we go into that home and we just sit down and we just look at what's going on, it is very obvious that disobedience is the problem. And we can analyze it a lot of different ways, but what destroyed that home was that they disobeyed the clear commands of God. And the lesson that we take away from that is that a home is a place where we ought to obey God. And if you insist on living in disobedience, you are going to bring a curse upon your home. Then we looked at the home of Lot and his wife. And when we came into that home was so far down the path of compromise with the world. I think that there would probably have been very little in that home that would have resembled a home that worshiped God. Lot had taken his family down to Sodom, a godless place, and he had raised cattle, but he had lost his children. And when I look at that home and how far gone that home was and how far that they've gotten away from God, the word that describes it for me is defection. So far away from God, so far away from the blessings of Abraham. Lot doesn't belong there. That's no place for where you want to raise your kids. They have defected from the place that God had them. And then very briefly, we looked at that home of Isaac and Rebekah. And most obviously, the word there is deception. It's a home that is filled with lies and deception and trickery and backbiting and secrets and deceit. You have two parents that are playing favorites with their two boys. There's a strife between the two brothers. There's between son and father, between a mother and another son, between husband and wife. We talked about the three pillars of building trust in a home, and that's truth, transparency, and trust. There's none of that in that home. And so we have disobedience, we have defection, we have deception. Well, tonight I want to take you to a couple of more homes, and the first home tonight I want to take you to is the home of Jacob and Rachel. And that's in Genesis chapter number 30. And in Genesis chapter 30, I want to begin reading in verse 1. I'll read down to verse number 13, and you'll be well familiar with this story. When Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah her handmaid to wife, and Jacob went in unto her. And Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. Now what I've read to you is nothing more than a big mess, is what it is. I don't know if they're still on, but there used to be these daytime television shows. I think one was Jerry Springer, where they would bring in some guest from the most bizarre, dysfunctional home that you could possibly imagine, and play their dysfunction right there on TV. You know, there'd be a woman come in and she wants a DNA test to see which of the 6 men she slept with was her baby's daddy. Or you know, somebody's caught cheating and we're going to expose him on live television. I don't even know if they're real. I don't know if they're actors. Can kind of home possibly get this messed up? You've heard of too good to be true. It's almost too dumb to be true, if you've ever seen anything like that. Well, if they would have had those kind of shows back in Genesis days, this home right here would have been a good candidate for that. It starts out with Jacob marrying the wrong woman, who then had to watch him go to work every day for 7 years to make enough money to marry her sister. And by the time it all comes to full circle, there's 1 man, 4 women, and 13 children in the same home. And when I go into that home and I look at that mess, the word that describes that home more than anything else is the word division. This is one divided home. And I've seen some divided homes. In fact, even in this church, there are situations where grown children are not acting like grown children, and there's not a lot of peace and harmony and happiness, and I've talked to you, and I know that there's situations like that, and it's not supposed to be that. The home is supposed to be a safe place. It's supposed to be a place of peace and harmony and security, where there's love that goes all the way around. It may be a spat now and then, but nothing major, nothing serious, nothing that lasts more than an hour or two, and you kiss and make up and you get over it. But here is a home that is divided. It is out of order. It is not what it's supposed to be. And so I want you to take a minute. I want you to come into the home with Jacob and Rachel and Leah. Now you got Bilhah and Zilpah, and they're all seeing who can have the most kids. And what caused all of the division in this home? And I think there's 3 or 4 factors. And the first is that I would say that they were divided because they were distanced from the master. Now let me explain this to you. I need to take you back to the beginning of this home to set this up. And I want to show you how long it has been since Jacob has prayed. If you go back to chapter 27, that's where the seeds of deception are sown into the home. That is where Jacob and his mother deceived Isaac, and Jacob deceived Esau. And so now you have one brother against a brother. You got a father against a son. You got a wife against a husband. You have a mother against her son. And there's bad blood in the home. And now you have one brother, Esau, swearing that I'm going to kill my brother Jacob. And Jacob has to flee the house for his life. And then when Jacob leaves, he's going to go to Padan Aram, to his mother's side of the family. And he's going to take refuge with a distant uncle. And in chapter 28 is when Jacob starts to leave. And when Jacob starts on that journey to Padan Aram, he gets to a place called Bethel. And Bethel is his first encounter that we read of in the Bible with God. It is the first time that you read of Jacob praying. Now, I'm not saying it's his first time, but it is his first recorded time. That's in chapter 28. Well, chapter 29 and chapter 30 is where he gets to Haran, and he sees Rachel, and he falls in love with her, and he works 7 years for her, but he ends up getting Leah, and then he works another 7 years for Rachel, and then he has 11 sons and a daughter. He works another 6 years before he finally leaves. So chapter 29 and 30, that entire span of time is 20 years of time. 20 years, 4 women, in that time frame, 12 children, career change, marriages, having kids. But look at chapter 31 and verse number 3, if you would. This is after 20 years. And the Lord said unto Jacob. Do you know that since the time that he left Bethel, 20 years later to right here, this is the next time that you read of any communication between Jacob and God. And maybe he prayed a lot in those years. Maybe he didn't pray at all in those years. But there is no record of any communication between Jacob and God for 20 years. You know, when someone makes a bad decision in rebellion, they're almost always bound to compound that bad decision with another bad decision. Jacob decides that I'm going to run away from home. I'm going to leave home in the heat of the moment. You know what he should have done? He should have stayed home and made amends. Don't leave home until things are right at home. When you say the best decision that I can make is to bail out of here, that actually might be the worst thing that you can do. But he leaves home at the worst possible time, and that never works out very smooth. And for the next 20 years, he will make, catch this, he'll make the most important decisions of his life when he's not on speaking terms with God. Now, young people, you listen to me tonight. When you make major decisions of life, and you're not in fellowship with God, you have lost your moorings and you are headed for trouble. There is a time when you need counseling. There's a time when you need some guidance. There's a time when you need a wise voice in your head. And Jacob is going into life-changing decisions without the wisdom of God in his life, and it is going to bring about a divided home. You can't decide on a course of life if you're not right with God. You can't go down a path of uncertainty when you're not in good standing with God. I say to you, all young people, you are bound to make a bad decision. A bunch of them. You're bound to make some bad choices, and you might even make some of them with a bad spirit and a bad heart. All right? Some of them will be innocent, and some of them will be just because you're stubborn and you're headstrong. But listen, as soon as you recognize that I have started down a wrong path, stop. Just stop right there. You might not be able to go back and change it, but you don't have to keep going forward. You don't have to keep making more stupid decisions. Just stop and wait for some help, and some help will come along pretty soon. But don't compound one bad decision with 3 more. As far as the record of the Bible is concerned, Jacob has stopped communicating with God, and in that distance from the Master, he makes the most important decisions of his life. You want to know how to have a divided home? Just quit talking to God. If you can be honest enough with your own heart and say, I'm in a bad way spiritually. I am not where I should be with the Lord. I may not be right with God and my spirit is all twisted up, but I'm not going to make it worse by leaving church. I realize that I am in no condition right now to make any kind of decision, so I'm just going to stop right there. If you know that you're chasing carnal dreams, then don't make a career change in that state of mind. Young man, if you are not right with God, then please don't pursue a relationship with a girl right now. You're not ready. All right? And this home has so much division. It has so much distinction because they quit talking to God. They're distant from the Master. But I think there's another factor that becomes very obvious in this home. Is there's so much division because they have departed from the model. So what do you mean? Jacob falls in love with Rachel. Laban pulls a fast one on him and gives him Leah first. Now, for the life of me, I've read it 100 times. I have never understood how Jacob married Rachel, spent the first night with what he thought was Rachel, didn't know that it was Leah until the next day. I don't know. They talked about it was dark. They had a veil. I don't know. It can't be that dark. So I'm telling you, I don't understand how it happened. That is exactly what took place. Now watch this. Jacob woke up the day after the marriage to discover that the person he married was not the person that he thought she was. Huh? This is not what he expected. This is not who I thought my wife would be. Huh? Anybody picking that up? Huh? What happened to you? There have been a lot of people who married somebody who turned out not to be who they thought that he or she was. I thought she would be sweeter. Well, he used to be so nice. I mean, the person I married turned out to be a different person than I thought. So you know what Jacob did? He married another woman. He worked 7 years to get Rachel when he already had Leah. By the way, do you know who the better girl was of the two? It was Leah. Hands down, it was Leah. Trust me. I mean, God gave him the right one the first time around. Yeah. Because it will be Rachel who will steal her father's idols. But Jacob didn't like the one he married, so he married another one. Then he got a concubine. Then he got another concubine. He ends up, before the chapter's over, with 4 women. Now here's the problem. Here's the problem. That's not the model that God laid out in Genesis chapter 2. You go back to the beginning, and the only thing you can get out of Genesis chapter 2 is one man, one woman for all of life. That's the model. But Jacob doesn't care what the model is. He's going to have the woman that he wants, even if he has to violate the plan of God for marriage. Been a lot of men who said, my problem is the woman I'm married to. That's my problem. And if I could divorce her and get that other woman, then all my problems would be fixed. I'd be happy finally. Huh? Did you know that 50 to 60% of first marriages end up in divorce? But did you know that nearly 80% of second marriages, not counting widow and widowers, but nearly 80% of second marriages end in divorce? The success rate of second marriages is a lot lower than the success rate of first marriages. And the problem is that the sin that you bring into the first relationship, you bring into the second relationship too. Most people don't deal with the issue that destroyed the first marriage, and those unresolved issues come into the second marriage too. And there is division in this home because they've departed from the model. But then I'll give you a third factor. In this home, there's division because there's discord among the members. The division starts in the marriage, but it is going to spread to the children in the home. You have Leah against Rachel. They're competing to see who can have the most kids. Then you have a son later on, Reuben, that's laying with his father's concubine. Then you have a father that's playing favorites with the 2 younger boys, Joseph and Benjamin. That's in this home. All the older sons are resenting it, and it is out of this home right here. That the whole story of Joseph and all the brothers against him comes out of this home. So the division that starts between Jacob and Rachel and Leah, that starts in the marriage, it spreads to those children is what happens. There's discord among the members. Our families, you know, our family is very close-knit, and we spend a lot of time together with our kids and grandkids, and we have to spend a lot of money to do that, but it's worth every minute of it. And we that's just what we do. And we always get together for a big Thanksgiving and big Christmas dinner. That's our big thing. And so Thanksgiving's coming up, and we'll have everybody. We'll have mom and dad, and then we'll have the sisters and all of their family, and the kids and all the grandkids, and a few neighbors, and you might come too. I don't know. And we just a lot of people, and we just a lot of food and big meals. And this year I'm spoken 2 turkeys for Thanksgiving, and just so much food. And here's what I've always wondered, and it's a wonderful time. It's loud and it's noisy and it's messy and it's just nuts, and we love it. It's our family's crazy, but we love them. And here's what I've always wondered: if we hated each other, how would Thanksgiving go? How do you do that? Huh? I don't like you and you don't like me, and we're not talking, the other 364 days of the year, but we're going to get together Thanksgiving. Have us a big feast and play Uno or whatever we do. But if you can't stand each other, how do you? I don't understand how that happens, because that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be joyous and peaceful. So here's what I'd ask you: is there division in your home? Mom and dad have fallen into the pattern of bickering against each other. You even let the kids scream back and forth. Is there a chance that you are to blame in any of that? Is there any chance that you bear any burden for the strife in your home? So here's what you do. Quit trying to change your spouse. Change you. Why don't you go to the Lord tonight and say, Lord, you know what? Let's just start with me. Lord, you help me fix me. And if you can fix me as big a mess as I am, if you can fix me, then greater to the lesser, I know you can fix her. Because a house divided against itself cannot stand. Jacob and Rachel, division. There ought not to be division in a home. There's division in this home. Let me take you to the second home, 2 Samuel chapter 11. 2 Samuel chapter 11. Let me take you to the home of King David. King David. Here's another familiar story. 2 Samuel 11 and verse number 1. It came to pass after the year was expired at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and the servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem. And it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her. She came in unto him, and he lay with her. For she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned into her house. And the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child. Skip down to verse 27, last verse. And when the morning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife and bare him a son. And here's the Lord's commentary on everything that took place in chapter 11. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. This is the one chapter in David's life that he would wish didn't have to be written. If there was one day he could go back and relive, it would have been this day. And even today, you can hardly speak of David without at least mentioning his adultery with Bathsheba. And here's his problem. David has a fleshly appetite, and he has multiple wives. And he sees this woman bathing herself on the rooftop of the house, and lust burned in his heart. Being a king, accustomed to having whatever he wants, he calls for her. And in the mode of sin complicating things, David has to have her husband murdered to cover up his sin. A prophet comes and announces fourfold judgment upon the house of David. When I think about David in this home and what takes place in it, the word that comes to my mind, maybe you come up with a different word, but the word in my mind The problem in the home is desire. It's desire. And all of us are made up of flesh, and all of us have lustful desires. There's no man in here that's not tempted by something. And it doesn't have to be sexual desires. But we are all tempted, and we all harbor secret desires. And we know that we're not to entertain them, and certainly not to give in to those desires. And in a home, there are a multitude of sinful desires that all can derail the home. And when sinful desires become the driving force in your home, then your home is headed for trouble. You see, there will be times when you are tempted in your flesh, but you don't have opportunity. There will be times when you have opportunity, but you're not tempted. But when temptation and opportunity meet up, that's when you better be filled with the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, to say no to both the temptation and the opportunity. And what happens in 2 Samuel chapter 11 is that there is temptation and there is opportunity, and David didn't say no to either one of them. And if we could enter into that home and just sit there for a day or two and just look at the desire, I think that there are some lessons about desire that I think would be very valuable. I'll give you 4 of them. And here's the first one. You ought to write this down. Is that fleshly desires may be tempting, but they are never truthful. Fleshly desires may be tempting, but they are never truthful. I don't know what lies David had to tell himself to get himself to the place where he would give in to the temptation, but he did have to lie to himself. I deserve it. That's a lie. I'll never get caught. That's a lie. It'll just be one time. That's a lie. It's innocent fun. That's a lie. There won't be any repercussion. That's a lie. And mark it down in your book that every temptation that you face is filled with lies. I've told you that I don't watch the news anymore because it's all propaganda. I absolutely refuse to watch any news since election night. And it has been a great thing for me. Because once you realize that all news is lies, that it's not news, it's propaganda. They are all liars. So once you know that this is propaganda, there is no truth to it, then it makes it easy for you to say, you're not lying to me anymore. All right? That's where you got to get to. And wouldn't it God that every young person in this place would get to the point where as soon as temptation comes up, the first question you ask is, where's the lie in this? I know there's a lie here somewhere. I just haven't figured out where it's at yet. Every billboard that advertises alcohol is false advertising. Every commercial that promotes promiscuity and fornication, that is false advertising. Every song that promotes adultery and sleeping in the back seat with you, I'm telling you that is false advertising. Fleshly desires may be tempting, but they are never truthful. And then here's the second thing. Fleshly desires may be fed, but they're never full. May be fed, but they're never full. Years ago, the cigarette manufacturer had the slogan, they satisfy. Well, if they do, why do you put 20 in a pack? Huh? Or the potato chip company. Potato chip people said, bet you can't eat just one. Huh? That's temptation. It's never satisfying. You'll always want to come back one more time. You never give in to temptation, and temptation say, now that you have given in and I have won the victory, I'll leave you alone now. No, the nature of an addiction is to get you to keep coming back one more time, one more time. Proverbs 20 and verse number 7, hell and destruction are never full. The eyes of man are never satisfied. You feed it, but it'll never be full. Every young man that is addicted to pornography began with little things. And no matter how far down the road he gets, if he ever gets out, he will never get out at the same place that he got in at. Just one more look. It just keeps dragging you back for one more time, one more time, one more time. And as soon as that is not enough, it has to progress to something deeper. Every drunk started with just one drink. They say that addicts that are addicted to opioids and drugs, they say that when they first take that drug, they experience a high like they've never experienced before, and they keep going back to that drug to try to experience that high again, but you never experience that high again. It's never quite the same. Fleshly desires may be fed, but they're never full. David will marry Bathsheba. He lusted after her, and he thought, if I can get her, my life will be complete. But it wasn't. Did you know that David had 7 wives before Bathsheba? Michal, the daughter of Saul, that's number 1. Abigail, who had been the wife of Nabal, that's number 2. And then there's 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7, there's 5 more, and then wife number 8 is Bathsheba. That's the one he really wanted. That's the one he goes through the most trouble to get. You would think you have fulfilled your lust. You have fed the desire. Now you're done. Oh no. 1 Chronicles chapter 3 tells you that he had other wives and he had other concubines. Wouldn't you think a man with 7 wives? I mean, can you imagine 7 wives to say that is enough, but lust is never satisfied. Whatever desire in your heart and in your home is not in accordance with the will of God, you can feed it, but it will never be full. Never. There's a third factor. That is that fleshly desires may be unseen, but they are never unknown. Once David has done the deed, now he has to go into the cover-up stage. And I'm sure that there were people in his inner circle that knew. But there's a whole lot of people in that kingdom that don't know. And we're going to try to keep it as secret as we possibly can. He even goes so far as to have Uriah arranged to have him killed on the battlefield. And there's a whole lot of the people in that kingdom that did not know what went on behind the scenes. But there was one person that knew. And verse number 27, when the morning was past, David sent and fetched her to his home. She became his wife, bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. From start to finish, God saw it all. God saw the desire. God saw the plotting. God saw the deed. God saw the cover-up. And I'm telling you that God sees you. We may not see the desire, but the fruit of it will come to the open. It may be unseen to you and I. It is not unknown to God. Amen. I tell you the last thing about fleshly desire is that fleshly desires may go unconfessed, but they are never unpunished. And you need to go and read Psalm 32 to see the other side of that story. Because for about 8 to 9 months, David lives with that sin and he wouldn't confess it. And I believe that Psalm 32 describes what went on in him in that unconfessed state. Nathan comes to him and tells him that God has seen him, that he has sinned against God, and David finally confesses. But judgment has already been pronounced. There is a price to pay. By the time that it is over, David will lose 4 sons because of this sin. It is all set in motion with one act of adultery. And I said last week that you get to choose your choices and your actions, but you don't get to choose your consequences. In Psalm 51, David finally throws himself on the mercy of God and begins to confess his sin. But that confession and that forgiveness does not bring those children back. It doesn't reverse the payment that he's already had to pay. And I think that tonight the best thing that you and I can do is to recognize that your flesh is not your friend. Your flesh is your enemy. It is an enmity against you, and you are in a battle every day with your flesh. And by the way, you and I need to recognize as parents that our children and our teenagers are just a bundle of desires. And a lot of those desires are illegitimate and will destroy their lives if ever acted upon. And if you give them a cell phone, you let them have the internet in their room, whatever it might be. And here's what they do. They whine, you don't trust me. You're right, I don't trust you. You're a good kid, but inside of you, there's a really wicked kid. Amen. And the really wicked kid wants to destroy the good kid, and we're going to do everything we can to protect the good kid against the bad kid. And if you'll think about the home of David, the little baby that was born to Bathsheba died just a few days later. Later on, Amnon rapes Tamar, his half-sister. And then Absalom murders Amnon. And then Absalom is killed by Joab. And Satan didn't show all of those things to David when he's looking at Bathsheba on that rooftop. But all of those things are put into motion the day that he said, bring her to me. And the devil's not going to show you the consequences of your sin. But rest assured, there are consequences. There's a home that is marred by sinful desire. Tempting, never truthful. Fed, never full. Unseen, not unknown. Unconfessed, but not unpunished. And I wonder if we were to come into your home for a day or two. And I had to sit there and say, what word would I use to describe your home? I wonder what word I'd use. Better yet, you live there. You're going back there tonight. You already know. What word would you use to describe your home? And if it is not something that is pleasing to the Lord, you ought to say, Lord, this doesn't belong here. I confess this to you tonight, and I'm going to go home and I am going to fix it. We're not going to have a home that is marred with disobedience or defection or deception or division or desire. We're not having a home like that. We want a home that is marked by the Spirit of God. Holiness, godliness, peace, harmony. That's what ought to characterize our homes.